is the author? That is the mystery to be solved in the show Gravity Falls. Now, Gravity Falls is by far the most requested video that is commented on my channel of all time. Now, I thought that Gravity Falls was a Disney Channel animated show from the 2010s. And it is, but apparently it is also filled to the brim with secret codes and mysteries and conspiracies. And if you know anything about this channel, you know that I need to try and solve this mystery. This is not a recap of the show Gravity Falls. This is me watching the show for the very first time and trying to solve the big mystery before the reveal. So after every few episodes, I will jump in here and I will break down the different suspects, theories, and clues that I have for what I think is going on in Gravity Falls. That way, at the end of the video, we can look back and see exactly how close or far off I was from getting it right. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the first episode of Gravity Falls. But before we dive into one magical world, let me tell you about another one. Today's sponsor, Heroes of History. Heroes of History is a strategic city building and hero collection game where you grow your civilization, battle in real time, and collect rare heroes. The game features famous historical and mythological characters, and it's a time travel story led by icons like Einstein and Tesla. What I love about the game is that it combines city building with hero collecting and real-time battles. So there's an element for whatever mood I'm in, competitive, casual, or strategic. But my absolute favorite part of Heroes of History, antimatter. One of the most engaging and fun mechanics. Who doesn't love the thrill of pulling a new character? The thrill of not knowing what you're about to get is what keeps me coming back every time. Right now, Heroes of History is having their huge Ancient Egypt in-game event. Players will step with Cleopatra into the Valley of the Kings to defend the Egyptian timeline and meet new event-limited heroes Tutankhamun and Nefertiti. Join the Ancient Egypt event to face Anubis now. And when you log into the game, you will get a limited hero, Tutankhamun. The hero won't be available after the event is over. Ever. And to face Anubis, you're gonna need a lot of resources. Make sure to use my personal link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to get the Anubis Awakening Starter Pack. That contains 10 antimatters, 2,000 XP, 20,000 food, and 5 do-it keys. Thanks again to Heroes of History for sponsoring this video. Now let's jump right back in to Gravity Falls. Alright, I just watched episode 1 of Gravity Falls, and I understand what we are doing now. To be completely honest, I didn't really understand what the main mystery of the show was. My comment section just kept talking about finding the identity of the author. But now that I've seen the first episode, I understand. So let's just jump right into this episode. We meet our main characters of the show, Dipper and Mabel. They are siblings who were sent to stay the summer with their Uncle Stan. And he lives in Gravity Falls, Oregon. And Gravity Falls is a wild place, brother. In this episode, we see that Mabel wants to have a summer fling. A boyfriend, and she finds one. But the boyfriend turns out to be 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other. Yeah, there's gnomes and shit here. What's very funny about this, though, is that Dipper originally thinks that Mabel's new boyfriend is a zombie, which apparently zombies can also be found in Gravity Falls. Now, in most shows, the big reveal that Mabel's new boyfriend is a zombie, that would just be it. But not in this show. No. We get a second reveal that her new boyfriend is not a zombie. He's 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other. And they are trying to find a new queen. I think I'm gonna like this show. I think I'm gonna like this show. So the whole thing with Dipper is that he feels like Gravity Falls is a strange place. And he thinks that Gravity Falls has some sort of secret. And he is vindicated in these thoughts when he finds a secret hatch in a tree. Like he's trying to hang up some signs in the woods. Bonk, tree is metal, opens up a hatch. He messes with some little robotic stuff in there, pulls a lever, boom, ground opens up. Guess what's inside? a book. Now, this book has everything to do with the mystery that we're trying to solve in this show. It's got a big number 3 on the front. Inside, it says Volume 3. And then it has a page that says property of, and then it's ripped. We don't know the author of this book. And that is the mystery that we are trying to solve. Who wrote this book? The book is filled with secrets about Gravity Falls. In fact, here is what Dipper reads out of the book. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years since I began studying the strange and wondrous secrets of Gravity Falls, Oregon. And we see like pages of like hand-drawn flying eyeballs, giant vampire bats, and we see a page about gnomes, which we interact with later in this episode. Oh, and then there's a page about cursed doors. I think that these pages are worth bringing up and noting because we know that the gnomes show up in this episode. So it's very likely that the creatures in the other pages, like the flying eyeballs, might show up sometime else in this season. Then Dipper reads more out of the notebook. Unfortunately, my suspicions have been confirmed. I'm being watched. I must hide this book before he finds it. Remember, in Gravity Falls, there is no one you can trust. Now this right here, this means it's game time, baby. This gives me something to work with. A mysterious notebook hidden in a metal tree in the middle of the woods? And that notebook has been hidden in the middle of the woods in a metal tree because he is watching. Who is he? Who wrote this notebook? What's so important about the secrets of Gravity Falls? I'm getting goosebumps, bro. This is what I live for. What if I started doing these videos and just like because I looked at the hat, which is not the best hat in the world, but it's like, it's very trucker. And I'm like, what if I just did this as like a frat guy? Yeah, we gotta solve these mysteries or whatever. We gotta try to wrap up this Gravity Falls thing before the big game tonight, dude. Everybody's talking about it at the frat house, bro. Everybody's wondering what's up with Dipper's notebook. Anyway, Dipper becomes pretty obsessed with the notebook, not the Ryan Gosling movie. And he does talk about it with his sister, Mabel. And one of the things that he says about the notebook when he's talking to Mabel is that the pages just stop, as if the guy who was writing it just mysteriously disappeared. Oh shit. What happened to him? You know what this show reminds me of, dude? When I was a kid, I had the DVD for a movie called The Spiderwick Chronicles. And from what I remember, it had a very similar vibe and premise to Gravity Falls so far. But the thing is the DVD we had a scratch in it. So I only ever got to watch the first 20 minutes of that movie. I never finished the movie. Ever. I would put in the DVD and just hope and pray that I would get past the first 20 minutes where it always stopped, but it never did. It always stopped. Maybe I gotta watch that movie. I've forgotten all about it. Maybe over on Patreon, we'll do like a watch through or something. I digress. We have quite a few mysteries to work through already. And even though the episode was only like 20 minutes, I feel like we have a lot to go on and a good direction to push towards. So let me tell you my first major theory. The kid's great uncle Stan runs a tourist trap called the Mystery Shack. And we get some fun moments of him like taking advantage of tourists and stuff like that. But we also get introduced to the 2 employees that work at the Mystery Shack. We meet Wendy, who is a teenager. She seems super chill, cool. And then we meet Seuss, like the doctor. Now, he seems more of like a side character, doesn't seem super important to the main episode, but he does show up several times during the episode at key moments when supernatural things are happening. Because remember, Dipper is on this journey of trying to figure out what's going on with his sister Mabel's new boyfriend. And I cannot stress to you this enough. He is 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other. Seuss comes across a bit dumb, but very lovable, which is also what my comment section says about me. I immediately locked in on a few things with Seuss in this episode. At one point, Seuss tells Dipper, "I'm always noticing weird things in this town," but then he immediately cuts that statement with a joke. Like, "I think the mailman is a werewolf." And then we get like a little Family Guy cutaway of the mailman being super hairy. But what if he's not joking? What if we, the audience, look at Seuss and we're like, oh, he's just kind of dumb. He's the comic relief, but he's being serious. Could Seuss be the one Who wrote the notebook? When Dipper read the entry in the notebook that said, "It's hard to believe it's been 6 years since I began studying the strange and wondrous secrets of Gravity Falls." And then when Seuss says the line, "I'm always noticing weird things in town," those two sentences mean the same thing. It's just one sounds more formal and educated, and the other is as if a regular guy said it, just in plain conversation. What if this is the big diversion, the big distraction? We think that Seuss is dumb, but he's actually a genius. And what if that is Seuss's plan? He is playing dumb. So that way, whoever he is that the author writes about in the notebook, the one that is watching him, the one that's making him hide the notebook, he's hiding in plain sight. Like, oh, I can't be the one. I'm just dumb Seuss. And that he, who is he? Well, at the end of this episode, I think we might get a major hint. At the very end of the episode, we see Stan open a secret door behind the vending machine in the Mystery Shack. And he just like walks into it. That's all we see. What if Stan is the one who is watching the author of the notebook, right? That would kind of make sense considering that Seuss works at the Mystery Shack that Stan is the owner of. So Stan would be able to watch Seuss all of the time. And when Dipper said that it seemed like the author mysteriously disappeared, I don't think that the author actually went missing or ran away. I think that the author had to stop their research because Stan was watching them too closely. And I feel even better about this theory because there's one point in this episode where Dipper is freaking out because he thinks that Mabel's new boyfriend is about to eat her brain. This is before we find out about the 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other thing. I'm going to title this video, "This 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other situation is crazy." I'm going to quit this channel and I'm just going to make a new channel where I make reaction videos to things that happen in Gravity Falls as if I live there. And all of the titles are like, "This vending machine secret doorway situation is crazy." If this video gets 30,000 likes, I will make that YouTube channel. As I was saying, Dipper is freaking out because he thinks his sister's about to have her brain eaten by a zombie. So he tries to find someone to help him. He goes to Stan. Stan is busy with tourists. So Dipper borrows the golf cart from Wendy. And then right before he goes off to fight the zombie, Seuss shows up and hands Dipper a baseball bat and a shovel. Is this because Seuss is the author and he knows that what Dipper is about to go up against, he's going to need a shovel and or baseball bat to fight? I feel like this is a really solid theory considering I've seen 20 minutes of the show so far. And I feel even better about this theory because in this episode, we met 6 characters. And one of those characters was 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other. We have very slim options on who the author could be. I really like my Seuss theory, so I believe that is what I'm going to be locking in for who I think the author is for episode 1. But before we do that, we have one more matter of business to attend to. I was told that in every episode of Gravity Falls, there was at least one secret code. And I was told that the code was often hidden in the credits at the end of the episode. So I kept my eyes peeled during the episode, didn't see any codes, but I did find the one in the credits. All right, now bear with me here. I had to get the whiteboard out and it's a lot shorter, so I had to move the camera. Hold on. Okay, this is the secret code that is in the credits. Can you see that good? Yeah. We are going to try and crack this code. Now, my thought process going into it is that this is a kid's show. It should be fairly easy to figure this out. But also, I've never tried cracking a secret code before, and I'm not afraid to ask for help. So if I don't figure this out in the next couple of minutes, I'll probably look up some help. Okay, so my first thought process is it's backwards, right? So this is one word, so it would be HPRFOHZ, which that's not a word. Unless I don't know what hyperphrase is. And then, yeah, that'd be RW. So that doesn't make any sense either. So that's not right. Maybe, Okay, well, when I see this one, I think it's like or. So it's like blank or blank blank. Like peanuts or strawberry jelly. Do you think that would be the secret code? Or no, I mean, I guess it doesn't make much sense if the R is the same, but that is something else. So it could be something like to, an, in, on, up. Okay, we're kind of cooking here, but I don't know. I do, voodoo. This isn't how you crack codes. This is not how you crack codes. Okay, this video is gonna be 8 hours long if I don't look up some help. So I'm gonna look this up. Okay, so apparently this is a Caesar cipher, which means you take the letter and then you go back 3 letters in the alphabet. So 3 letters before Z, W, X, Y, Z. Welcome to Gravity Falls. Oh, my chair felt. I would not have figured that out. So I'm glad I looked that up. I'm going to be honest here. I feel like that was a lot of work for them to just say, welcome to Gravity Falls. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess it would be silly to think that they were just going to like tell me the answer of the mystery in the first credit code. How's a kid supposed to figure this shit out? Or is this common knowledge? And this is going to be like one of those things that my comment section is filled with stuff being like, bro doesn't know Caesar's cipher. What an idiot. Is this common knowledge? Do kids know this sort of thing? Because I don't know if I would have gotten there if I hadn't looked up help. How am I supposed to know to subtract 3 letters or whatever? I don't know. But the fact that they hide secret codes in this show is sick. And I bet we'll get some like really good hints in the secret code in the credits as the mystery goes along. So I'm very excited about that. This is super cool. I'm locking in my theory that Seuss is the author of the book. And I also think that Stan is the person who caused the author to go into hiding and like hide the book. So that's what I'm locking in for episode 1. Let's go watch the next few episodes and see what we can learn.
Legend has it.
I seen it! I seen it again!
A mysterious creature
The Gravity Falls Gobblewonker!
resides in Gravity Falls.
Did you guys hear that?
Do you believe?
All you gotta do is point and shoot. Like this.
Run!
The picture!
Take a trip, if you dare, to Gravity Falls.
I just watched episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, this show is very episodic, meaning it's not really an overarching narrative. Each episode is its own contained story, like what you would normally see from a SpongeBob or a Fairly Odd Parents. You could watch any episode in a random order and still get the same experience, for the most part. So when it comes to trying to find clues or find theories or, locate some suspects on who could be the author, we really have to read between the lines. For example, in the last section, I locked in the theory that Seuss is the author of the book that Dipper found in the woods. So now, in episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm looking for any sort of evidence or clue or even just the smallest hint that could back up that theory. I'm gonna have to take these ears off. The ears are crazy. In episode 2, we see that Seuss actually has a bigger and better boat than Stan. I found that very weird because Seuss works for Stan. So how can he afford a nicer boat, or at least a bigger boat? The autofocus was freaking out with these glasses on, so we might just have to rock the fez and the mustache. I'm losing costume pieces quick. With this fit on, dude, I look crazy, bro. I look like I would walk up to you at like a family barbecue and you've never met me in your life. And I'm like, I just had a fifth of vodka. Dare me to drive? This fez is sick though. Should I start rocking a fez? I bet if Timothy Chalamet did a movie wearing a fez, everybody would pay like $300 for a designer luxury fez. Anyway, my thought process was, how come Seuss has a nicer boat or a bigger boat than Stan, right? Is it because he's secretly more than just the janitor at the Mystery Shack? Then in episode 4, we get a throwaway moment that could be a lot more than meets the eye. Dipper and Mabel visit the world famous Tent of Telepathy. Basically, it's another tourist trap, but with this little kid who's a psychic. We'll get to him in a minute because I've got lots to talk about with this child. But anyway, in the tent, Dipper makes a statement about how similar this Tent of Telepathy is to the Mystery Shack. And he says they even have their own Seuss. And it's this guy. And he looks just like Seuss, but he's got a name tag on that says Deuce. And when Seuss sees this guy, his whole expression changes. He looks furious. He looks pissed. He looks like he hates this guy. So my brain going haywire, right? Is this guy Seuss's brother? Could Seuss and Deuce be arch nemesises? Could Seuss be the author of The Notebook, and Deuce is the he who is watching him and causes him to hide the notebook? Because remember, the author of The Notebook said that he was being watched and that he needs to hide the book before he finds it. And in the last section, I was very suspicious of Stan, as he could be the big villain, the he who is watching the author. Mostly because we saw that hidden doorway behind the vending machine that Stan goes into. That's suspicious behavior. I've never watched someone go in a secret trapdoor behind a vending machine and they've been up to good things. Like, I don't think the March of Dimes' headquarters is behind a vending machine. I don't think Make-A-Wish is fulfilling wishes behind a vending machine in a tourist trap in Oregon. But I could be wrong. Now, I really, truly love this theory that Seuss and Deuce are like the focal point of this mystery, because there's just something to the idea that like the show isn't inherently about this mystery. It's just like the shenanigans of Dipper and Mabel and their great uncle Stan and Seuss and Wendy. Like it's fun. And then I just really love the idea that in the background kind of characters have this crazy conspiracy mystery happening. And it's only really like, you can only really see it if you're paying close attention. You know, like when they have secret codes hidden in the credits, it feels like anything is on the table, especially when the codes are as hard to decipher as they are. Cause it's like, I'm not a child and I would not have figured out that code thing. I wouldn't have even known to check the credits for a code if someone hadn't given me a heads up and been like, oh, by the way, there's secret codes in the credits. Can you imagine if I put out this video and all of you watching were like, oh, I can't wait to see what he does with the codes, and then I just never mention them? I don't know they exist. God, that would have been embarrassing. That kind of stuff happens to me a lot, though. So anyway, what if this whole mystery is about the notebooks? Notice how I said notebooks, plural. I keep catching glimpses of myself in this outfit, and honestly, I kind of like it. Like, there's videos when I'm in a costume and I'm like, this is embarrassing that I am a grown man uploading footage of me in this to the internet forever. Like when I'm wearing the Archie wig when I do Riverdale videos, which, by the way, I see your comments. We will be doing season 3 of Riverdale, I promise. But no, not this one. This one, I'm proud of this one. I look kind of dashing. Anyway, what if the whole mystery is taking place not with the main characters, but with the background characters? At one point, Seuss even makes this comment during an episode. What if I'm just a side character? You guys ever think about that? Now, that seems like a meta joke about how he is a side character in this TV show, and he's like being like, hey, what if I'm a side character? That'd be crazy. But what if there's more meaning to that? And there's like tons of background characters that we meet in this batch of episodes. Like this guy, Old Man McGucket. In episode 2, he builds a giant mechanical gobblewonker monster to haunt Scuttlebutt Island. And now he does this to get his son's attention. But what's absolutely wild about this is he's insane. Like, he talks like he's insane. A lot of the words that he said don't even feel like English. It's just gibberish. And yet he has this ability to engineer a giant mechanical monster that can go underwater. Universal couldn't even figure that shit out with the Jaws ride. And apparently this isn't even like the first time he's done something like this. He says that he built a homicidal pterodactyl monster when his wife left him, and then he built an 80-ton shamebot when his friend didn't go to his retirement party. He's also currently working on a death ray. How does he know how to do all of this? Could he be the author? This motherfucker right here? And then something happened, with all the supernatural stuff in Gravity Falls. Maybe he came up against some sort of monster that scrambled his brain. So now everybody thinks that he's just insane, but really he's a super genius, and he's just like, maybe he even has like a tongue curse, and it just makes his words sound like gibberish, even though he's a very distinguished gentleman. right? And then maybe like when he writes things down, it sounds like how the author talks, which is very like educated, very scientific. But when he speaks out loud, because of whatever tongue curse he has, it sounds like, woohoo, yeah, hee hee. Another possibility is that he's pretending to be crazy. Remember my whole theory about Seuss being the author and that he's just playing dumb to throw people off the trail? Could be the same thing for this guy, McGucket. And this is not the only time that we see Old Man McGucket. We see him in episode 3 as well. This is an episode where wax figures come to life. And before we even know that the wax figures are alive, my boy McGucket makes a comment at a press conference where he says, "Are the wax figures alive? And can I survive the Wax Man uprising?" And he says it so early in the episode, you don't even really notice it at first. It's just like he's the town crazy guy, a conspiracy theorist who thinks that the wax figures are going to come to life and try to kill humans. But then later in the episode, the wax figures come to life and try to kill the humans. It's almost as if he knew about it because he's the author. I think it's very likely. I mentioned another new character we meet in this batch of episodes, Gideon. He is the child psychic at the Tent of Telepathy. He falls in love with Mabel, and he wants Mabel to go out with him. But Mabel just doesn't like him because he's not 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other. That, and he's just kind of a little weirdo. But he can't accept that. He can't accept that she just doesn't like him. And so he freaks out and he tries to trick her and trap her. And at first, Gideon just kind of seems like a scam artist, like Stan, like he's just a fake psychic. But then we find out in the episode, he has real psychic abilities. He has this bolo tie thing, kind of like I do, that lets him like psychically move things with his mind. We even see him try to murder Dipper, bro. Homicide. And it was very violent. Like, you wouldn't expect that from a kid's show. Like, I would have kind of expected cartoon violence, like the time, you know, my main man Dipper was swinging left and right with that shovel to get all of those gnomes. But in this one, it was straight up like homicide, like trying to murder him. Anyway, Mabel destroys Gideon's tie, which gives him his psychic abilities, like moving shit around. So he seems defeated now, right? Wrong, because at the end of episode 4, Gideon pulls out a matching notebook to Dipper's. Except this book has the number 2 on the front instead of the number 3. So that means that Dipper has the 3rd notebook. Gideon has the 2nd notebook. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, but I think that what that means is that there is a 1st notebook somewhere. Unless this guy's a freak and just starts things with 2. So where is the notebook with the 1 on the front? And also, the fact that Gideon has one of the notebooks makes me think that he's going to be a bigger part of this mystery than just kind of a one-off side character. He's a pretty despicable guy. He could be the big bad guy of the season, especially when he says stuff like this. This town has secrets you couldn't begin to comprehend. It definitely seems like he has a bigger understanding of what's happening in Gravity Falls, much like Dipper. Now, writing-wise, this is just like taking a step back from being in-universe, just like storytelling and story structure-wise, it seems like Gideon is going to be Dipper's foil. The anti-Dipper, if you will. He's a kid with a secret notebook that he found, and he uses it for evil, compared to Dipper, who is a kid who found a notebook that he uses for good. So I say this to say, I do not think that Gideon is the author. I think that he's going to be more of the Dipper's nemesis role. The Moriarty to Dipper's Sherlock Holmes. Maybe it'll even be a thing where they're both racing to try to get the notebook with the number 1 on it. So we've got our eyes on Seuss and Old Man McGucket for who could be the author. We also have our eyes on Gideon and Stan on who could be the big bad guy of Gravity Falls. Now let's talk about the secret codes in the credits of this batch of episodes. Truthfully, nothing super helpful that I could tell. They mostly just seem like little fun messages that have something to do with a joke or something that happens in the main episode. For example, episode 2's code in the credits was, next week, return to Butt Island. Scuttlebutt Island was the place where the monster, the water monster, was, monstering about. And then I was like, okay, so does that mean that we're going to be going back to Scuttlebutt Island next episode? No. So, they lied. Episode's 3 code was he's still in the vents. Now they're talking about one of the wax figure's heads. He got decapitated, but his head is still running around the vents. Episode's 4 code was Carla, why won't you call me? I don't know what the fuck that's about. But I did used to work with a lady named Carla at my old job. And one time, it was my birthday, and she asked me if I was turning 35 years old. And so because of that, I don't trust anyone named Carla, because I think I was 25 at the time. I might have even been 24. Episode 5's code was Onwards Aoshima. That's what Mabel yelled in her hallucination when she was off of that smile dip. It's a whole thing. There was a haunted gas station. It was a fun episode. Basically, Mabel and Dipper went with Wendy and her friends to this, they're trying to be cool like the older teenagers, even though our main characters are 12. And they go to this haunted gas station. It's a whole thing. So basically, the secret codes have not helped us much so far. I'm also constantly searching like during the episodes for some sort of code or message to pop up. I have yet to find anything. It doesn't mean that they're not there. It just means that I'm not catching them. Like every time that the theme song is playing, instead of skipping it, I'm like staring at it so intently because I just feel like if they have a secret code in all of the credits, then they would put a secret code in the intro, but I can't find one. There is like a little moment where Dipper like shines his flashlight at some like runes, but I would like, there's not even letters. So it's like, I think that's more of just for the like cosmetics, like the vibes. So it's like when you're watching the theme song, you're like, oh, that's a secret code. That's what this show is doing. It does secret codes. Anyway, who am I locking in for who I think the author of the notebooks is? I truthfully really like my Seuss theory because of this Deuce character, but I'm also really liking my Old Man McGucket theory. And honestly, between those two theories, this one just interests me more because it's very apparent that he is a extremely intelligent person due to, building monsters and such. But everyone thinks that he's such an idiot. And I think that speaks more to me. So I am locking in McGucket. Let's go watch the next few episodes and see what else we can learn.
Friday, August 10th.
Butterflies! Does it even work?
Dipper's unbelievable discovery.
I think this copier can copy human beings!
Leads to a peculiar plan.
I gotta get in there. Cover for me?
Well,
Thanks, man.
If only I could be two places at once. I will call you number 2. Definitely not.
I just watched episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9. We got some really cool stuff in this batch of episodes. Like we get an episode about the founding of Gravity Falls, and it's like a whole conspiracy wrapped up in the 8.5 president of the United States. We get a time travel episode in this batch of episodes. That was a ton of fun. We get an episode where a copier machine makes clones of Dipper. And in that episode, we find out why they call him Dipper. He's got a birthmark of the Big Dipper on his forehead. At least it's not the Little Dipper. It's all good stuff, but I know what you're yelling. You're yelling at the screen right now. Chase, what about the books? His mustache is not comfortable. Yeah, I don't like that. But anyway, I know what you're saying. Chase, are you any closer to figuring out who the author of the books is? No. There's not a lot in this batch of episodes that are like direct evidence or clues towards our mission, but there are a lot of little moments that kind of back up my Seuss theory. Like in episode 7, I think we find out that Seuss works at the Mystery Shack for free. At least I think that's what Stan meant. Basically, Stan is throwing a big party at the Mystery Shack. A bunch of people from Gravity Falls are coming. Seuss is going to be the DJ, and Dipper's like, why do we have to help? Why do we have to work on this? And Stan essentially goes, well, you two don't have a choice because you're under my guardianship. And Seuss works for free. Anyway, this really works well for our theory because we mentioned how Seuss had a bigger and better boat than Stan in the lake episode, even though Stan is the owner and Seuss is the employee. So it's like, how can he afford that? And then now apparently he works for free. Then in the time travel episode, Seuss manages to predict something insane that happens at the end of the episode, and he makes this prediction at the beginning of the episode. Basically, Grunkle Stan is rigging this carnival game. There's a carnival where it's a dunk tank, but he's like welding it shut so that way when anyone throws a ball at the target, it won't dunk him in the water. And Stan is like, no one will be able to hit this. And then Seuss goes, except for a futuristic laser arm cannon. I will give you 3 guesses what happens at the end of this episode. A futuristic laser arm cannon dunks Stan. And in that same episode, there is a moment where Seuss seems to know more than he lets on. Stan can't find his screwdriver, and so Seuss goes, maybe some sort of supernatural creature took it. And then sure enough, the time traveler has the screwdriver. I just really think that Seuss has more going on than meets the eye. I have a few theories of what could possibly be his deal. My first theory is that since we have been introduced to time travel, maybe Seuss is actually a time-traveling Dipper. And then that means that Dipper is reading his own journals. I think that this is really cool. It would be able to create a lot of paradoxes. Like, would have Dipper been able to save Mabel from the gnomes back in episode 1 if it wasn't for future Dipper giving Dipper the shovel and baseball bat? That's fun. My next idea is Seuss and Deuce. I think that maybe these two could be twins, and their story would actually parallel with Dipper and Mabel, who are also twins. What if Seuss and Deuce were brought to Gravity Falls as kids, just like how Dipper and Mabel are? And the two of them are having wacky supernatural adventures, just like Dipper and Mabel are. And during that time, when they were in Gravity Falls together for the summer, they were writing down all of the things that they were witnessing into some notebooks. And that's why we've seen 2 journals so far. The number 3 journal and the number 2 journal, which means that there's a number 1 notebook out there too. And we'll get to that in a minute. Basically, Seuss is writing in the notebook that has the 3 on it. Deuce is writing in the notebook that has the 2 on it. Seuss is hanging around with Dipper, who happens to have the 3rd notebook. Deuce works at the Tent of Telepathy with Gideon, or for Gideon, who happens to have access to the 2nd notebook. Basically, I think that something happened, maybe something supernatural, some sort of rift happened between Seuss and Deuce that caused them to be on opposite sides of some sort of war. There's like the good side and the dark side. And maybe Deuce got caught up in the dark side of Gravity Falls. So Seuss is using his warrior Dipper, who has access to the 3rd notebook, as like his champion in this war. Dipper is the chosen one of this story, which would make Seuss like the wise mentor character. And that's what's so fun, and a fun twist on that is he doesn't seem to be a wise mentor at all. He seems to be a big dumb idiot guy. Then Deuce has his champion, Gideon, who has access to the 2nd notebook. And Gideon is his champion in this war. And eventually, Dipper and Gideon, who have already become rivals, will be facing head-to-head the good side versus the dark side of Gravity Falls. But remember, there's book 2 and there's book 3. There's a book 1 out there. But Chase, there's only Seuss and Deuce. Who wrote the 1st notebook? What if Seuss and Deuce are triplets, and there is a female triplet, and that triplet is the one who wrote the 1st book? Why do I think it's a female triplet? Well, other than the parallel of there being Dipper and Mabel, like a male and female twin, there is a female character that we have heard about, but we have not seen. In the secret code from the credits of the Gideon episode, we got a message that said, "Carla, why won't you call me?" Seuss, Deuce, and Carla. And in this epic battle of Gravity Falls, the big finale, we will see the 3 triplets, the 3 authors of the notebooks, competing with their champions, Dipper, Gideon, and who would be Carla's champion. Dipper has a rival in Gideon. And then in episode 7, we find Mabel has a rivalry with Pacifica Northwest. I believe that is a joke off of Chanel West Coast. And we see Pacifica go up against Mabel as an adversary several times in this batch of episodes. Episodes 7, 8, and 9 have Mabel versus Pacifica in some sort of capacity. I think that Carla, the author of the first book, is going to be using Pacifica as her champion. And this helps out a lot because how many characters? So if there's 3 authors of the 3 notebooks, Seuss, Deuce, Carla, pretend there's a person named Carla here, then there's 3 champions, Dipper, Gideon, and Pacifica Northwest. However, we're forgetting about a major character here, Mabel. So it would be Mabel against her rival and Dipper against his rival. And because Dipper and Mabel are both the main characters of the show, they're both best friends with Seuss at this point. Seuss has 2 champions instead of 1 because the power of family and friendship powers overall. I think I'm really cooking right now, bro. I think that I'm truly cooking. So basically, what I'm locking in for my theory of who the author is 3 different people. Seuss, Deuce, and Carla, triplets who once upon a time came to Gravity Falls for the summer and fell in love with its mysteries, just like Dipper and Mabel. Oh man, this is so sick. Okay, let's go over the secret codes that were in the credits for this batch of episodes. Episode 6 credits say Mr. Caesarian will be out next week. Mr. Atbash will substitute. Now, I didn't know what that meant at first, but then when I got to the next code, I realized that that Caesar cipher thing that I was using to do the codes wasn't working anymore. And then after a few minutes of fucking around with that, I was like, oh, Mr. Caesarian, Caesar cipher will be out. Mr. Atbash will substitute. So I Googled Atbash. Turns out it's another code breaking thing. I truly felt like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure figuring this out, even though I was just kind of using Google and basic, what I learned last time. Anyway, the Atbash cipher is a little bit different. You basically just mirror the alphabet. So A would be Z, B would be Y, etc., etc. Anyway, the code for episode 7 was Paper Jam Dipper says, that's a fun little joke from the episode where Dipper clones himself with a copier and there was a paper jam. Not very helpful for our mystery, but that is okay. The code for episode 8 is E Pluribus Tremblay, which Tremblay was the guy from the episode where we find out who founded Gravity Falls. He was the 8.5th president of the United States who preserved himself in peanut brittle to make it to where he survived all the way to modern day. It's a very fun episode, but that code does not help us. Episode 9's code said not H.G. Wells approved. This was for the time travel episode. H.G. Wells is the author who wrote the sci-fi. Well, he's like the father of science fiction, but he wrote The Time Machine. My favorite of his is The Invisible Man. I'm a big fan of the book and the 1930s movie. In fact, The Invisible Man is my favorite of the Universal monsters. It's like Invisible Man, Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman. Those are my top 3. Anyway, that's the codes for this section. I am locking in my theory that Seuss, Deuce, and Carla are triplets and they are the authors of the books. All right, let's keep watching and see what else we can learn.
Next Friday, visit the only town that celebrates Halloween.
Here we are, the Summerween Superstore. Wait, summer what?
Twice a year.
Happy summer
Sup, squirt.
And only in Gravity Falls.
Trick or treat!
Well, aren't you just the cutest?
Will the tricks
Guys?
outweigh the treats?
We met Carla. I knew I was onto something. We have met Carla. I just watched episodes 10, 11, 12, and 13. In the last section, I brought up a big theory about Seuss and Deuce having a triplet named Carla. And I think I came up with the Carla idea based off of one of the secret codes from the credits. And most of the time, the little codes in the credits, they're just fun little jokes about the episodes. They don't usually mean anything more, or at least not that I've noticed so far. But there's not that many characters in Gravity Falls. We've met some of the people in town, like Old Man McGucket and Gideon and the sheriff and his partner. We've met Wendy's family, which is made up of lumberjacks. We've met Wendy's boyfriend, Robbie. Stuff like that, but we have not met anyone named Carla until now. In episode 13, Stan goes on a game show called Cash Wheel. It's basically Wheel of Fortune. And on that show, Cash Wheel, the Vanna White character, for those of you who were under the age of 40, Vanna White was like the lady that stood at the sign. And then when the contestant was like, "Are there any C's?" And they would be like, "Ding, ding." And she would like show off the letters. The lady doing the Vanna White character for Cash Wheel is named Carla. Now, I know what you're thinking, Chase. We are over halfway through this season. If Carla was a major part of this mystery, why in the world would they wait this long to introduce us to Carla? And then when they introduce us to Carla, she is a throwaway gag background character named Carla in a random game show that Stan is on, and something that does not pertain to the main mystery at all. I don't know. I do not know. Wouldn't you have thought they would have introduced her in a bigger way? I don't know. That's not really for me to decide. I did not make this show. I'm just trying to figure out the show. I am ridiculously hyped up about us finding and seeing Carla, because really, that was just a wild theory that I threw out. And the fact that we meet Carla, or a character named Carla, in this episode, like this batch of episodes, big win. Big win. The show rules, dude. I will say, though, we are over halfway through the season. There's 20 episodes in season 1. We're over halfway at this point. We have not gotten any concrete evidence towards the author of the notebooks. Or at least not, it's been a while since we got some like direct confirmation about something about the author. Pretty much everything we've been talking about lately is very much us reading between the lines. But we do get an episode about Gideon in this batch of episodes. In episode 11, Gideon wants to take the Mystery Shack. Like, he wants the physical building. And he says that the reason he wants the building is because the Mystery Shack holds a secret that you couldn't possibly imagine. Now, we saw back in episode 1 that Stan had a secret room or something behind the vending machine in the Mystery Shack. We have not gotten any sort of update on that. It was they showed it to us for a brief second in the first episode, have not brought it up again. Does Stan have something behind that secret doorway that Gideon wants? Now, we also have no clue what the stakes about the secrets of the Gravity Falls even are. So far, we've seen some fun supernatural creatures and some fun, like copy machines that clone humans. But you know what? We have met, officially, the most terrifying creature in Gravity Falls in this batch of episodes. In episode 12, it is about Summerween, and we meet a character named the Summerween Trickster. This motherfucker is genuinely terrifying. It was really dope. But back to Gideon. Speaking of Gideon, actually, we meet his mom in this batch of episodes. Something's wrong with this lady. It's like Gideon is holding her captive. It was pretty weird. There's gonna be something with that, I'm sure. But anyway, Gideon wants something that's hidden in the Mystery Shack. And I think I know what it is. There is a scene in the episode where Gideon is holding Dipper and Mabel hostage. He shrinks them down like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and he's holding them hostage because Gideon thinks that Stan, as a ransom, will give him the deed to the Mystery Shack. And Gideon is talking to Dipper, and he goes, "How exactly did you come across this magical item?" He's talking about this magic crystal that grows and shrinks things. And Gideon goes, "Did someone tell you about it? Did you read about it somewhere?" And we get this quick shot of Dipper pulling out and taking a quick glance at his notebook. Now, we know that Dipper has one of the books. We know that Gideon has one of the books. It seems like Gideon wants the books. Does he think that the first journal is like hidden somewhere in the Mystery Shack? And Gideon has a pretty big rivalry with Stan. And it's mentioned pretty heavily in this episode that Stan just considers him to be an elementary school kid who's kind of got a screw loose. But Gideon is deathly serious about this rivalry because he might think that Stan has the first journal. And you know what? What if he's right? What if Stan actually knows more than he lets on? Could Stan be the author of the books? Or maybe he was just the first person to find one. Does Stan have the journal with the number 1 on it? Is that what even like brought Stan to Gravity Falls in the first place? Did he open up the Mystery Shack in an effort to try to solve the mysteries of Gravity Falls? I have a new theory about this, because so far in the show, I have just assumed that Stan knows nothing about the real supernatural creatures of Gravity Falls and the secrets and the mysteries. And that is why the Mystery Shack is filled with a bunch of hoaxes. Hoaxes. And then in episode 13, we get a whole plot line where Mabel is put in charge of the Mystery Shack instead of Stan. And one of Dipper's main, complaints about the Mystery Shack, the way that Stan runs it, is in a town filled with real supernatural creatures, why are we filling our Mystery Shack with fake magical creatures? That kind of sounded like Obama. Let me be clear. It's fake magical creatures. So when Mabel is in charge, she tells Dipper, you go out in the woods, little buddy. You can find you a real supernatural creature. We'll put him on exhibit. And this, it backfires immediately. Dipper learns a very valuable lesson. The tourists do not like real magical creatures. They like the fake stuff, the hoaxes. What if Stan came to Gravity Falls in search of real mystery? He was a very real monster hunter, just like how Dipper considers himself to be. But then Stan quickly realized the lesson that Dipper just learned, which is the tourists, they don't want to see real stuff. They want to see the fake stuff. It's charming. It's what they're there for. Because do you remember the episode where Dipper finds the copier machine that makes clones of himself? That copier is Stan's. Ladies and gentlemen, here is my theory. Stan came to Gravity Falls in search of real mystery. He found it. He began filling up notebooks with all of the things that he was learning about the secrets of Gravity Falls. Stan is the author of the books, but something happens. Something causes Stan to have to hide his notebooks before he can get them. Stan then goes into hiding as a con man who's running this fraudulent tourist trap. I do not know what the thing could have been that causes Stan to have to go into hiding or pretend to not know anything about the supernatural and the mysteries of Gravity Falls, but something happened. Now, my first thought is maybe it was Gideon. Maybe Gideon is the one that causes him to have to hide the books and go into hiding, but that doesn't feel right. So then I was like, well, what if I combined this new theory, the one about Stan being the author, with my other favorite theory, which is about the Seuss, Deuce, and Carla storyline? Because truthfully, we have not seen Deuce again since the first time that he was introduced in that cutaway gag. I may have been reading too much into that. What if Stan is the author of all 3 notebooks and the bad guy, the he that sent him into hiding, that sent him to hide his books in the woods, is Seuss? All of the stuff that we've been saying about Seuss when we thought maybe Seuss could be the author still works. He knows more than he lets on. He's pretending to be dumb. But not because he's the author, but because he is the big bad guy of Gravity Falls. Now, of course, if Stan is the author and Seuss is the big bad guy, why not just fire Seuss? Get him out of the Mystery Shack. Maybe it's because Stan needs to keep an eye on Seuss, because if Seuss gets the books, then he becomes extremely powerful. Gideon seems to think that the first journal, notebook, book is hidden in the Mystery Shack. What if it is, but not by Stan, by Seuss? What if Seuss has the first journal? Maybe Stan purposely helped Dipper find the 3rd notebook that day that he sent Dipper out to put the signs on the trees. So that way, Dipper can help him on this quest of vanquishing the bad guy of Gravity Falls, whoever that may be. And I do think that may be Seuss. Because look, the super lovable character turning out to be the big bad guy, that is a common trope. That has happened a lot. But this is a show on Disney Channel. This was targeted towards kids. This might have been their first experience with a twist like that. How devastating would it be if you're, 11 years old and you love Gravity Falls, You think Seuss is the funniest, sweetest guy ever, and then you find out that Seuss is the bad guy? That would blow your mind. And so that is the theory that I'm locking in for this section. Stan is the author, Seuss is the big bad guy. Now, before we move on, let's talk about the secret codes and the credits from these episodes. Episode 10 was Sorry, Dipper, but your Wendy is in another castle. This is the episode where Dipper brings a video game to life, and I believe that this is a reference to Mario. Episode 11 was The Invisible Wizard is Watching. Now, when I got this code, at first I was like, oh shit, there's going to be an invisible wizard. But then I got a hold of myself, because in that episode, there's like a funny joke where Mabel is trying to figure out how in the world Dipper made himself a little bit taller. And she goes, there's a wizard in the closet, isn't there? And he's like, there's not a wizard in the closet. And she goes, oh yeah? Opens up the closet. There's nobody in the closet. And then she goes, it's an invisible wizard, isn't it? Very funny joke. Made me laugh. Ha ha. But I don't think that there's a real invisible wizard. Episode 12's code is brought to you by Homework, the Candy. This is the Summerween episode where it's a lot of bad candy. And so it's just like a name for the bad candy brand, I guess. Side note, when it comes to the whole Summerween thing, it totally didn't even occur to me. At first I was like, oh, did they do like Summerween because they wanted to do a Halloween episode really bad, but like the release schedule for Gravity Falls was like in the middle of the summer. But then I was like, oh wait, no, duh. Dipper and Mabel are supposed to be in Gravity Falls just for the summer. So they wouldn't be there in October. And so they really, I think that's cool because like Phineas and Ferb is supposed to take place just over the summer. But we've had several Phineas and Ferb Halloween episodes, I'm sure, that probably take place on Halloween. So I wouldn't have noticed. But good on them, because there would have been people that would have been like, oh yeah, well, they're supposed to only be here for the summer. So how come they're only here? How come it's Halloween there? Anyway, episode 13's code is Heavy is the Head That Wears the Fez. That's the episode where Mabel takes over the Mystery Shack. And let me just tell you, because I've been wearing a fez in this video, it's heavy. This is so much fun. I'm having a blast. I'm locking in the theory that Stan is the author, Seuss is the bad guy. I think this really works on all fronts because it's been pretty clear since episode 1 that Stan is like a red herring character. We're supposed to think that he's the big bad guy because of the secret vending machine door. We're supposed to be like, maybe he's the bad guy. Plus, he's just kind of grumpy all the time and like selfish. And this works because the big reveal is not that Stan is the big bad guy, it's that he's the hero. And then you get another twist when you find out that the very sweet, fun character, Seuss, is actually the bad guy. I think this works. I'm very excited to keep watching and see what happens next. So let's go watch the next few episodes.
Next Freaky Freakin' Friday.
You're not having a sleepover!
It's time for Dipper and Mabel to get their own rooms.
That's it. That's the final straw.
Fine by me.
Only
This room gives me major creepo vibes.
getting a new room
You both want this room, huh?
comes with a catch.
We're not going to suck up to you just to get the new room.
Yeah, we are.
And when their plan to win hits a little snag,
Am I in your body?
Am I in your body?
Yes.
I just watched episodes 14, 15, 16, and 17, and we get some wild moments in these episodes. They kind of have me all over the place theory-wise. Like, let's start with episode 14. We see Stan reading a book called The Plot Twist. Is this a little Easter egg? Is this saying, hey, there's going to be a pretty big plot twist coming up? Then in that same episode, Mabel makes up a lie about Stan being the author of a book called Crime Grandpa. And one of the cops who are questioning them goes, oh, you're an author? An author, bro? They straight up call Stan an author. Then we go on to episode 16, where they find a secret room in the Mystery Shack. It looks like someone used to live in that room, but then it was all boarded up and forgotten about over the years. There's all kinds of stuff in this secret room. There's a calendar with July 4th, 1982 circled on the calendar. The secret room has a carpet with a tag that says Experiment 78 Electron Carpet. This rug ends up being the main plot device of the episode where Mabel Mabel and Dipper switch bodies. The room also has a pair of glasses that Stan picks up and takes with him. And I do think that these glasses are very important because later in that same episode, we see Stan like sitting in his chair and he's just looking at the glasses kind of longingly, or maybe it was looking at them sorrowfully, like he's sad. It's almost like he misses the person who used to wear those glasses. And so after I saw that stuff happening, I'm starting to form some theories, right? Like, where does your brain take you? Okay, someone used to live in the Mystery Shack with Stan. Probably not a wife, right? Because if it's his wife, why would she be having her own bedroom? Now, I'm sure that there's a lot of couples out there who have, separate bedrooms or separate beds or whatever, and that's fine. But just for the sake of this theory, let's pretend like it would be strange if his wife had her own bedroom. Could it be a roommate? What about a sibling? This made me start to wonder, right? Like even if this has nothing to do with the mystery, I started thinking about Stan's relationship to Mabel and Dipper, like to the kids. He's their great uncle, their grunkle, which means that he is the sibling of one of their grandparents. We don't know if it's is it their grandma's brother, their grandpa's brother? And then on which side of their family? Is it their dad's brother, dad's mother's brother, or is it on the mom's side? You see what I'm saying? I just find it never occurred to me how it's very funny that they chose to go with great uncle as the relationship between the kids and the relative that they are staying with over the summer. I don't have a great uncle, I don't think. Well, maybe I do. I just don't know him, maybe. Now that I think about it, I do think I met a great uncle one time. And I think he offered to get me a Great Dane. I did not accept that offer because I was 15, maybe. Basically, I don't think my parents would have let me have a Great Dane. Now I'm an adult. If he offered it to me now, I'd probably still say no. I don't think I have the yard for a Great Dane, man. Those are some big animals. I don't know if I have the house for a Great Dane, to be real. Those motherfuckers are probably about as tall as me. I'm 6'4", and that's not a joke. That's legit. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So basically, is the person who used to live with Stan Mabel and Dipper's grandpa or grandma? But then we get a moment that made my jaw drop. In episode 17, Stan starts telling Dipper a story about an ex-girlfriend of his. And his girlfriend was named Carla Hot Pants McCorkle. Carla, you've got to be fucking kidding me, dude. Are you telling me that our Carla theory might be dead fucking on? All the way back in episode 4, in that end credit secret code, we hear the name Carla for the first time. I was like, maybe Carla is one of Seuss's siblings, based just off of this Deuce character. And then we meet a Carla at the cash wheel. Now, is this a separate Carla? I don't know, because when Stan's telling the story about his ex-girlfriend Carla, we get a visual. And this is young Carla that Stan was dating before she left him for another man. And I don't know. Actually, they kind of look similar. She's more tan. She's more tan on Cash Wheel, but they have the same nose. But honestly, Pacifica Northwest has a similar nose to that. They all have very different noses, except for these two. They have similar noses. Is it not insane that kind of on a whim, I was like, maybe this Carla person could be a big deal. And she keeps coming up. We've heard her name mentioned so many times. And now we find out that Stan had an ex-girlfriend who left him for another man. And then we see Stan looking at some glasses kind of longingly. Could those be Carla's glasses? But Chase, you said it yourself. In this episode, Stan is telling the story that happened a long time ago that he was dating Carla. And she left him for another man. How in the world would she be living in the Mystery Shack with him? Buckle up, baby. I'm about to tell you the theory of a lifetime. So let's just start with the baseline that Stan is the author of the journals. And let's just copy and paste everything I said about Stan in my theory that I locked in the last section. Stan was a monster hunter, just like how Dipper considers himself to be. And then he learned the lesson that the tourists don't like real monsters. All the stuff about how Stan was in Gravity Falls to unravel the secrets of the town. And then he had to stop because of he was watching him, whoever he is. What if, while Stan was in Gravity Falls, writing in these journals, trying to figure out the secrets, he was lonely? He needed a friend, a companion, maybe even a girlfriend. And the only person that he can think about, he's so lonely, is his ex-girlfriend, Carla, the one that got away, the one that left him for another man. Carla Hot Pants McCorkle. So using the clone-making copy machine that we know is in Stan's office, Stan uses a picture of Carla to create a Carla clone. Clone Carla, if you will. Now, as we learned in the episode where Dipper makes a bunch of clones of himself, all of the clones have pretty much the same identical personality and thoughts, and it's just like an exact replica. So this clone Carla would be pretty much the same thing as regular Carla. So Stan has his own Carla now, and he's finally happy. Carla has her own room in the Mystery Shack. She's got a pair of glasses in there. Maybe they were even set to be married. What date do you think that maybe they set to be married on? Maybe July 4th, 1982, the date that is circled on the calendar in the secret room that they found in the Mystery Shack? But then, right before the wedding, something happens. Whoever Stan's afraid of, whoever caused Stan to hide the journals that he was writing, they killed Carla. Because we learned in the cloning episode with the Dippers that any sort of water or liquid disintegrates the clone. The bad guy of Gravity Falls kills Carla by dumping water on him. Stan is devastated. Stan has lost his best friend, his soon-to-be wife. His heart is broken. He can't go on. He hides the journals, and he puts on this front as a con man fraud who knows nothing about any of the real supernatural stuff in Gravity Falls. Who is this bad guy? Who is the he who sent the author into hiding the books, and the author thought that he was being watched? Lately, I've been saying that it's Seuss. I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. I think that it could be Old Man McGucket. Why him? Well, he seems to be close in age to Stan, so that would line up. He definitely seems to know more than he lets on, and we've seen him have great mechanical engineering skills. At one point in this batch of episodes, he creates a voice-changing tonic to give to Dipper so that Dipper can change his voice. I mean, you know, he's doing wild shit like that. Also, McGucket has pretty much become a mainstay in the show, even though he is just like a background character. He shows up a lot. It would make sense for him to be revealed as the big villain of the show because we, the audience, has seen him the whole time. So I am officially locking in my theory that Stan is the author of the journals and his big arch nemesis, the evil villain of the show, is Old Man McGucket. And just like, you know, include all of that clone Carla stuff in there. Now let's just go through the secret codes that we got in all of the credits for this batch of episodes. Episode 14 introduced another new cipher for us to try to break. And guess what, guys? I didn't even have to look this one up. I figured it out myself. It was pretty easy. It was just numbers. And then so I just checked the numbers and how they correlated to the alphabet. So like 1A, 2B, so on and so forth. And I nailed it. First try. Looks like your boy's getting a little smarter. The code was next up, Footbot 2, Grunkle's Revenge. Just another little joke. Episode 15, this one gave me a little bit of trouble because I thought, oh no, it's another new cipher because I didn't understand what words it was making. So I just Googled it and it did Google Translate and it was Spanish for Long Live the Pool Ducks. That episode was about Mabel meeting a merman at the local pool. Show's awesome. It really is incredible. Episode 16's code was But Who Stole the Capers? This is a reference to a Hardy Boyle style book that Dipper was reading in the episode. Episode 17 is Happy Now Ariel. I don't know what the fuck that's about. I don't know an Ariel. All right, this is such a fun show. I'm having an absolute blast. The codes make this so fun, even though they don't seem to really help with the mystery at hand. It's still fun to be like, oh, I gotta decipher the code. Let's go watch the next couple of episodes and find out what we can learn.
Friday, July 12th.
You'll never see the Mystery Shack again!
Good luck, bucko.
They always go head to head.
This is the last straw.
But this first time, Gideon gets inside Grunkle Stan's head.
It worked!
And only Mabel and Dipper can stop him.
Oh, yeah?
Take a trip to the most mysterious, creepiest,
Hey, Mr. Tummy.
strangest Gravity Falls yet.
Arm thrown. Arm thrown.
Friday, July 12th at 9, 8 Central on Disney Channel.
All right, everyone, this is not a drill. I just watched episodes 18 and 19. 18 was a fun one with some underground dinosaurs. Old Man McGucket tags along with the main characters for the adventure. I saw that as a pretty big, like, oh, could he be, you know, they're really inputting him in this episode. Could it be because he's very important? But episode 19, episode 19 gets crazy. In episode 19, Gideon shows back up because he is trying to steal the deed to the Mystery Shack. We have seen this before. But this time he's like, okay, I need the combination to stand safe because that's where the deed is hidden. And the only place where you can get the combination to stand safe is in Stan's mind. So Gideon fucking conjures a demon? The show is insane, dude. Gideon pulls out journal number 2 and he summons this guy named Bill Cipher. This guy, he's a floating pyramid. He's a floating pyramid and he's like a demon. And after he showed up, I was like, dude, I feel like we've been seeing pictures of this motherfucker the whole show. And sure enough, in the intro, in the theme song, at the very end, there's a picture of this guy. He's been there the whole time. Anyway, after this guy shows up, Dipper opens up his journal, the one with the 3 on it, and he starts reading a passage about this Bill guy. Beware Bill, the most powerful and dangerous creature I've ever encountered. And there's a side note on this page that's like handwritten that says, is he watching me? Now, this actually tells us a lot of information. Or at least I think it does. One, it shows us that the author knows who Bill Cipher is and has written about him in both of the journals that we have seen, Gideon's journal and Dipper's journal. But Stan seems to have absolutely no clue who this Bill guy is. And not even in the like pretending to not know who he is, like legit does not seem to know who this guy is. So that leads me to 2 different theories when it comes to Stan, because remember, I've been locking in Stan as who I think is the author of the notebooks, the journals. So here are the 2 theories. 1, Stan is not the author of the journals, and I have been terribly wrong this entire video. Or 2, maybe something happened to Stan to where he has lost his memory or is no longer the same version of Stan that he was before. Maybe Stan used to be this mystery hunting, monster hunting author, this epic author that we've been hearing about the whole season, but then something happened. Maybe he went up against Bill at some point, and maybe Bill did some sort of supernatural thing that causes Stan to forget who he is. Maybe the secret room that we found in the Mystery Shack used to belong to Stan. What if the glasses in that room that Stan finds were Stan's old glasses? And when he's looking at these glasses and he's looking at them kind of longingly, like he misses the person who used to wear them, it's him. He's trying to remember who he used to be. And maybe it was like one of those things where it was like Stan, the author, versus Bill Cipher in an epic battle over Gravity Falls. And it was one of those things where Stan had to kind of sacrifice himself in order to save the day. But he wasn't sacrificing like his life. He wasn't going to die, but he was going to be losing any self that he has. It's like the Spider-Man thing. How, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, nobody remembers Peter Parker except Stan doesn't remember Stan. And now, because in that battle, he sacrificed himself to send Bill away. But now Gideon has brought Bill back. And now Mabel and Dipper are going to have to try to bring back the old Stan, the author Stan, so that way he can put an end to Bill. Kill Bill is a good way of putting it. We got to kill Bill, because that's the thing about Bill. At the end of this episode, the kids, Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss and the gang, they manage to defeat Bill, but they don't kill him. They don't send him away. He leaves of his own accord. And as he leaves this very ominous message where he goes, a darkness approaches. A day will come in the future when everything you care about will change. It's almost like a prediction or a prophecy. And after this episode, I definitely think that Bill Cipher is the big bad guy of the show. Mostly because of the page in Dipper's journal where the author hand wrote, is he watching me? Bill is the he who was watching the author, and the author had to hide the books. I really think that I'm onto something with Stan being the author and Bill being the big bad guy, and that they had some sort of epic battle that caused Stan to not remember that he is the author and like all of the supernatural stuff. And the reason I feel so strongly about this theory is in this episode, Dipper and Mabel and Seuss, they're in Stan's mind. And there's a point where they're going through and they're seeing the memories, his memories. And in one of the memories, we see Stan, and he's standing at the vending machine, the secret passageway that we saw in episode 1. And he goes, secretly behind this vending machine, I have and then Seuss leaves the memory because he got bored. But it was like they were teasing us. It was like we were about to find out something about Stan. Now, this episode ends with Gideon stealing the deed to the Mystery Shack. So it looks like our main characters have lost against Gideon. And then we get to be continued that fills the screen. Now, the next episode we watch is episode 20. It's the finale, the season finale, season 1 finale of Gravity Falls. So I think that we're probably going to see this issue resolved in the finale. I also think that this is where we're going to, like, if my theory is correct, we're going to see Stan wake up, realize that he is the author, and they're going to work together and they're going to take out Gideon. Well, not take him out. He's an elementary school kid. They're not going to kill Gideon, but you know what I mean? Defeat Gideon. So I am locking in that Stan is the author and that he just doesn't remember it because of a battle with Bill in the past. I really like this theory. I also really love the theory that I locked in last time about the clone Carla thing, but I do think that it makes more sense for the glasses that he was staring at longingly in the secret room actually belong to him, the former version of himself that he no longer remembers. He's not mourning a loved one. He's mourning his old self. And that also really goes with his character well because he's such a kind of like self-centered person, but you know, with a sensitive side. And that sensitive side is probably the real version of him trying to escape. Maybe Bill, when Bill, you know, and him had that epic battle that I made up. I don't even know if any of this is real. Maybe Stan, you know, lost all of the good parts of himself and he became the shell of the person that we see now, where he's very selfish and he's a con man and he only cares about money. But by Mabel and Dipper being there with him, it has cracked him open a little bit, and that sensitiveness and the kindness in him is coming out, you know? And that's going to help him remember that he is the author and help him defeat the bad guys. So that's what I'm locking in, baby. Secret codes for these 2 episodes. One of them was "It works for pigs." That was a commercial thing for a pig carrier that Mabel buys. And then episode 19 was "To be continued." And then there was actually another code in this episode. When they were in Stan's mind, they saw like the Mystery Shack. And then where the sign that usually says Mystery Shack is up on the building, it was a code. So I deciphered it and it just says Mystery Shack. And at first I was like, well, okay, well that was, you know, I spent my time decoding that and it just says what it always says. But then I was like, wait a minute, we're in Stan's mind. Why in the world is all of the stuff in Stan's mind labeled in the same codes and ciphers that we've been solving this whole season? I truly think it does lend itself to the theory that Stan is the author and he just doesn't remember it. But in his mind, subconsciously, he has all of this stuff with the codes and shit. I'm having a blast. I'm so excited to watch this season finale. So I've locked in my prediction. Let's just go watch it, dude.
Friday, August 2nd.
Kids, you're going home.
What?
It's the season finale of Gravity Falls.
Yeah!
Gideon stole the shack.
I give you Gideon land!
Are Dipper and Mabel really leaving?
Look, Mr. Bus Driver!
It's an episode so full of secrets, you have to watch until the very end.
This is normal.
Oh my God. I just watched episode 20. Woo, the season finale. There are some huge moments in this episode. And then also we have some good news and then we have some bad news that we need to talk about. But before we get into all that, I think Stan might be the author or the big villain of the series. One of the two. Dude, what an epic finale. Let's just start going through all of the stuff that we learn in this episode. First, Gideon goes on this monologue about the author, and he says, "It was written many years ago by a brilliant unknown author who learned secrets too powerful for one man. He hid his journals where he thought no one would ever find them because he knew that if the journals were ever brought together, they would unleash a gateway to unimaginable power." And then Gideon has taken over the Mystery Shack because he's searching for the other journal. He thinks that there's only 2 journals because he's had access to the one with the number 2 on it. So logically, he's like, oh, well, then there's a 1. He doesn't even realize until after he steals Dipper's 3rd journal that he's like, oh my God, there's 3 journals. So he steals Dipper's journal. And he's like, oh God, he's pissed off because he needs all of the journals in order to, unleash unimaginable power, whatever the fuck that means. And then from something that Dipper says about the journals in this episode, he says that it's a blueprint. Basically, on one of the pages, he sees kind of a partial blueprint to build some sort of strange, futuristic super weapon. So basically, whoever can get all 3 of the journals has the complete blueprint to create a super weapon. Then later in the episode, Gideon is defeated because Dipper beats the ever-living fuck out of him. Like, you do not see that often in shows like this. Dipper deadass just beats the shit out of Gideon. There's no elaborate plan. There's no crazy like, oh, maybe if we can do this, we could be... No, just boots to asses. Dipper just beats up Gideon. It was so sick, dude. But anyway, so Gideon gets his ass beat by Dipper. The whole town turns on Gideon because Stan reveals to everyone that Gideon had been given everyone these little Gideon pins, and there was a secret camera and microphone, and that's how he was able to be psychic, because he was watching everyone all the time. So Stan gets the Mystery Shack back, and then everything goes back to normal, right? But then Dipper decides, you know what, we've all been through so much together. I'm gonna show Stan my journal, the number 3 journal. And Stan just laughs at him. He's like, this is so dumb. You gotta stop reading these fictional books. They're gonna ruin your mind. And then he takes the journal from Dipper and he's like, I'm gonna use this to find some, to come up with some exhibit ideas. But then, dude, we see Stan go behind his vending machine through the secret passageway. It leads him to an elevator. He goes 3 floors down beneath the Mystery Shack. Then he's in like a secret laboratory. And he's got all kinds of technology down there. And we see that Stan has the first journal. And then earlier in the episode, when Stan had defeated Gideon, after Dipper beat the shit out of him, he got access to the 2nd journal. And then Dipper just gave him the 3rd journal. Stan has all 3 of the journals. And Stan even looks at the journals and he says, and I quote, "After all these years, finally, I have them all." He's like Thanos with the Infinity Stones. Bro, Stan lays out all of the journals and like forms the big blueprint, starts typing on this supercomputer. This giant machine lights up. Stan looks dead into it and says, here we go. Holy shit, dude. There's so much going through my head. From the description that Gideon and Dipper both gave about what this blueprint would create, is it some sort of super weapon, right? So does Stan now have a super weapon? Is he a super villain? Has Stan been the bad guy this entire time? Is he like about to destroy the world or something? Or is Stan actually the author and he's been trying to get the journals back together? But if that doesn't even make any sense, because if he is the author, then he would know where the journals were hidden. Unless, of course, my theory about him losing his memory is correct, in which case he couldn't remember where the journals were. But as he's slowly been getting his memory back and like becoming his old self again, he's been trying to track down these journals. Who is the author? Is it Stan? Is Stan the bad guy? Is this a super weapon that has been built? What does the super weapon even do? Oh my God, but this leads us to our good news and bad news. The bad news is that we did not get the big reveal in the season 1 finale, which means that in order for us to figure out if we can solve Gravity Falls before the reveal, we have to go watch season 2. And the reason that that's the bad news is because, this video is over. Which leads me to the good news. The good news is that part 2 of this video, where we go over season 2 and try to solve it, will be the next video uploaded to this channel. You do not have to wait long. So, make sure you subscribe and, hit the bell and stuff so that way you get the notification when part 2 drops. Also, we got 2 codes in the credits for this episode. One of them was very difficult to figure out, so I had to look up some help. Sue me. We know how I roll. I'm not a code breaker. I'm a person. But one of the codes said to reverse the ciphers, which I see that and I'm like, which ones? Like all of the ones from this season? Because that doesn't even make any sense. What is it? If I just look at them backwards, it's gibberish. Trust me, I tried. So I don't know what that means. Then the other one said, search for the blind eye. I don't know what that is. My mind immediately goes to the lady that works at the diner who only has one eye. Because, blind eye. That's all I could really think of. The show has me fucking jazzed right now. This is incredible stuff. What other show has like secret codes and stuff? Seriously, this is not a rhetorical question. Comment down below if there is other shows like this, because I need more of this in my life. Part 2 is coming very soon. Links down below for Patreon. Follow me on Instagram. Thanks again to Heroes of History for sponsoring this video. All right, dope.